Hello, my name is Rick Pearson. Welcome to Prophecy USA, a program specifically designed to unveil the hidden mystery of America's role in Bible prophecy. You know, since 2019, Prophecy USA have unlocked multiple verses in God's written word describing the fiery judgment that is coming to Babylon the Great. However, we also discuss God's open window of deliverance, where His bride miraculously escapes that judgment. But do the prophets of old reveal to us in writing how the hour of judgment will come upon Babylon the Great? Since America meets all 53 biblical descriptions, do the prophets of old literally reveal to us how and who will fulfill the 54th description? Stay tuned, because you don't want to miss this. Welcome back, folks. You know, Isaiah 66:8 indirectly asks the question, can a nation be birthed in a day? And that question was answered on May 14th, 1948, when U.S. President Harry S. Truman called the Prime Minister of Israel, David Ben-Gurion, recognizing Israel's independence to become a nation. But can a nation be destroyed in an hour? The answer to that question is answered 8 times in Scripture. Yes, it can, and it will. Remember, God watches over His word to perform it. If He has said it, He will also do it. If He has purposed it, He will bring it to pass. We've also learned that because of the many sins that Babylon has committed, God will judge her in that hour. Specifically, the shedding of innocent blood, the sacrifice of 65 million innocent children in this nation is the sin that tips the scale and provokes the judgment that will come by fire. In episode 2, we also learned of the 8 providential nations that would rise and fall throughout history. 6 of those nations have come and gone, with only Babylon the Great and the New World Order left to appear before Christ's coming. However, according to Scripture, these are not the only nations that are active in the last days. The Bible showcases several more nations that will not only participate, but will divinely execute God's judgment upon the United States of America. Listen to this.
Ethnologists are biblical scholars who study the migration pattern of Noah's descendants. Those descendants in Genesis 10 are denoted by the family's name who, after the flood, moved to different locations of the earth. Those families have grown and multiplied throughout the generations, resulting with a global population of 8 billion people. And that global population has been distinctly categorized by countries today. We have learned from previous lessons that in God's eyes, Israel, and specifically Jerusalem, is the geographical center of the world. It is here where we also find an end-time event where nations will gather to fulfill their role in Bible prophecy. In approximately 550 BC, Ezekiel prophesied of a coming war in the last days. However, prophetic scripture does not just speak about nations. Ezekiel specifically identifies principalities, powers, and rulers of darkness in high places, whose desire is to steal, kill, and destroy mankind. In this coming war, Ezekiel identifies a spirit named Gog from the land of Magog, who is the chief prince of Noah's descendants, Meshach and Tubal. Ethnologists identify the land of Magog, where Meshach and Tubal moved to, as the approximate location of what we call Russia today. According to Ezekiel, this spiritual entity named Gog will put an evil thought into the minds of not only Russia's people, but several other people groups who will join Russia. Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, and prophesy against him. And I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth, and all thine army, horses and horsemen, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all them handling swords. Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya with them, all them with shield and helmet. Gomer and all his bands, the house of Togarmah of the north quarters, and all his bands, and many people with thee. At that same time shall things come into thy mind, and thou shalt think an evil thought. And thou shalt say, I will go up to the land of unwalled villages, to take a spoil, and to take a prey. Ethnologists identify Persia as modern-day Iran and Iraq. Ethiopia and Libya's names and location have remained intact. Gomer is possibly located in what is now Germany. Togarmah is believed to be the name of the region now known as Turkey today. These names may not be the exact countries who joined together, but their geographical locations give us an approximation of where the descendants of Noah will come from to fulfill this prophecy. However, it is abundantly clear that these people will be of one mind, with an evil thought to remove the Jewish people from the covenant land that God has given them. However, according to Ezekiel, there are allied nations who confront the hostile armies coming to attack Israel. Sheba and Dedan, and the merchants of Tarshish, with all the young lions thereof, shall say unto thee, Art thou come to take a spoil? Hast thou gathered to take a prey? Ethnologists identify Sheba and Dedan as the present-day location of the Saudi Arabian Peninsula and possibly includes Egypt. Tarshish is considered to be the regions of Britain, France, and Spain. It is interpreted that all the young lions thereof refer to Britain's offspring, most likely being the United States of America and Canada. In this future war to come, we can identify the regions of Russia, Iran, and Iraq, Ethiopia, Libya, Germany, and Turkey that will be coming against Israel from the north. Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Britain, Spain, Canada, and the United States will stand together confronting Israel's enemies. This war has not been fulfilled. The only timeline Ezekiel gives us is in the latter days thou shalt come into the land, against the mountains of Israel. However, God's sure word of prophecy is so detailed, it literally gives the result of this war that will take place in the latter days.
Welcome back, folks. You know, it's undeniable that Israel and the Mideast nations surrounding her is one of the most volatile geopolitical regions on earth today, with the continual bombardment of rockets and terrorist attacks coming from her enemies. Now, Ezekiel records that God will instantly punish the nations coming against Israel. He'll burn 5/6 of the aggressive nations from their position on the northern mountains of Israel, which today is known as the Golan Heights. Now, these are the same Golan Heights that the United States has already recognized as belonging to Israel. However, the Golan Heights is not the only area that receives a judgment of fire. God also rains fire on a group of people who dwell carelessly in the isles or the coastlands. Is it possible we will see this war? Nobody can tell you when this war will take place, but our team at ProphecyUSA can assure you this: the Gog Magog War is inevitable, and we, the young lions of Tarshish, will definitely be involved. However, the most dramatic and alarming detail concerning God's fiery judgment over there is the phrase that they who dwell carelessly in the isles or in the coastlands will receive that same judgment. But who exactly are they? You know, the word carelessly in this passage is the Hebrew word beta, meaning confident and unsuspecting. The Bible uses the word carelessly in describing the description of the Lady of Kingdoms, Babylon the Great, who is deposed immediately before the New World Order comes into power. Now, in the Isles or Coastlands is a perfect description of the young lion of Tarshish, who obviously lives far away in the coastlands. However, America, who trades with the merchants of the earth, with 40% of the world's seaports, obviously dwells on the coastlands. Her coastal location, the pride of her wealth, the security of her military, and the fiery judgment linked with the Gog Magog War is a haunting description of Babylon's demise before the New World Order deposes her. For thou, Babylon, shall no more be called the Lady of Kingdoms. Therefore hear now this, thou that art given to pleasures, that dwellest carelessly, that sayest in thine heart, I am, and none else beside me. I shall not sit as a widow, neither shall I know the loss of children. But these two things shall come to thee in a moment, in one day, the loss of children and widowhood. They shall come upon thee in the perfection, for the multitude of thy sorceries, and for the great abundance of thine enchantments. For thou hast trusted in thy wickedness, and you have said, none seeth me. But thy wisdom and thy knowledge is perverted thee. And thou hast said in thine heart, I am, and none else beside me. Therefore shall evil come upon thee, and thou shalt not know from whence it cometh or riseth. And desolation shall come upon thee suddenly, which thou shalt not know. You know, we have matched the description of those dwelling carelessly in the isles with the woman Babylon the Great. In previous programs, we uprooted over 53 verses in Scripture that describes this mystery nation, and the United States of America, recognized globally as a woman through the Statue of Liberty, matches every description. The forming of the Gog Magog War is going to be viewed on North America TV, just like all wars are transmitted on social media and TV networks. However, we may not need a TV to see the results of this war. We might just need to look out our windows. Isaiah gives us a hint of how it will happen. Therefore shall evil come upon thee, and thou shalt not know from whence it arises. From this verse, it's evident that Babylon will not know from whence her judgment comes. In other words, it will come as a preemptive strike. But will it come from one of the nations who are joining Gog and Magog while they attack Israel? You know, 100 years after Isaiah's prophecy, another prophet is visited by an angel. His name's Jeremiah. But he failed in convincing King Zedekiah of the coming destruction of Jerusalem that would come from historical Babylon in 605 BC. Now, at this time in his ministry, Jeremiah was laughed at, he was mocked, scoffed, and eventually thrown into a cistern for his word of gloom and doom towards Israel. Now, the false prophets during that time refused to warn the people of the sins of Baal worship, of child sacrifice, or the immoral deprivation in the nation. They prophesied peace, promising that Israel was God's covenant nation. But Jeremiah delivered the exact word the Lord had spoken to him instead of the candy-coated fluff that the itching ears of God's people wanted to hear. In 6th century BC, God sent an angel to Jeremiah the prophet to warn him of the rise of historical Babylon and how God would use her to judge Israel. Now, the other prophets contradicted everything the Lord had spoken to Jeremiah, telling Jeremiah that he was wrong. In his frustration, Jeremiah petitioned the Lord, and the Lord prophesied by saying, I have seen folly in the prophets of Samaria. They've prophesied in Baal and caused my people to err. They walk in lies, Jeremiah. They strengthen the hand of evildoers. They are like unto me as Sodom and the inhabitants of Gomorrah. So don't hearken unto the words of the prophets that prophesy unto you, because they make you vain. They spake a vision of their own heart, and not out of the mouth of the Lord. They say still unto them that despise me, you shall have peace. And they say unto every one who walketh after the imagination of his own heart, no evil shall come upon you, but in the latter days you shall understand and consider it perfectly. I've not sent these prophets, yet they ran. I've not spoken to them, yet they prophesied. But if they'd stood in my counsel and caused my people to hear my word, they should have turned them from their evil ways and from the evil of their doings. I will forsake you and the city that I gave you and your fathers, and cast you out of my presence. Israel fell to Babylon in 605 BC, just as Jeremiah had prophesied. But even before the 70 years of the Babylonian captivity began, the word of the Lord came to Jeremiah, and he prophesied or foretold the judgment that would eventually come to Babylon. Remember, surely the Lord will do nothing, but he revealed his secrets unto his servants, the prophets. Jeremiah 51 says, blow the trumpet among the nations, prepare the nations against Babylon. Call together against her the kingdoms of Ararat, Minni, and Ashkenaz. Now, in this verse, Jeremiah is talking about the latter days and latter-day Babylon that would rise up. Prepare against her the nations with the kings of the Medes, and the land shall tremble in sorrow, for every purpose of the Lord shall be performed to make the land of Babylon, latter-day commercial Babylon, a desolation without inhabitant. You know, ethnologists tell us that Ararat is the land of modern-day Turkey, near the Russian and Iranian borders. Many are people who lived in the present-day location of northwestern Iran. And the Medes were an ancient Iranian people who lived in Persia, which today we call Iran. But could this prophecy be a typology or a dual prophecy, meaning it not only refers to then and there, but it has significant meaning for us in the here and now? You know, the Expositor Bible Commentary states, it has troubled many scholars that chapters 50 and 51 predict the violent destruction of Babylon, whereas its defeat by Cyrus in 539 BC took place without a battle and with no damage to the city. Isaiah 13:19 adds additional information of Babylon the Great's destruction when he says, and Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldeans, shall be as when God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. The night historical Babylon of 539 BC fell, the Persians had diverted the waters of the Euphrates River, lowering them below the gated Babylonian waterways, and then secretly came into the city under the gates of those waterways. At the same time, in fact, the very same night that Daniel interpreted God's handwriting on the wall to the king and his party of drunken Babylonian diplomats, the Persians came into the king's palace, slayed the king and every leader of the Babylonian government. They did not destroy Babylon, of ancient Babylon. They literally captured her without any battle, and then occupied her right to the time of Alexander the Great's conquest of Persia 270 years later. However, in this prophecy, Jeremiah warns, O thou that dwellest upon many waters, abundant in treasures, thine end is come. Behold, I'm against thee. I will stretch out my hand upon thee, and will make thee a burnt mountain. The land will tremble and sorrow, and every purpose shall be performed against Babylon to make her a desolation without an inhabitant. Her cities are a desolation, and I will punish Baal in Babylon. Then the heathen of the earth shall sing for Babylon, and her high gates shall be burned with fire. We now see Jeremiah prophesies that Turkey, Iran, and the lands bordering Russia prophesied 2,700 years ago then and there will be used to make Babylon the Great a desolation here and now. And it should be noted that verse 43 says her cities are a desolation, not just one city in Babylon the Great. And those cities are located within 12,000 miles of America's coastlines, which have all fallen to Baal worship. These nations are part of the coalition of aggressor nations that are involved in Ezekiel's Gog Magog War against Israel. 5/6 of those armies will be burnt with fire on the Golan Heights, as well as those who dwell carelessly in the Isles. In February 2019, leaders of Russia, Turkey, and Iran formed an alliance that was prophesied by Jeremiah 2,500 years ago. Two of these nations, Russia and Turkey, have more nuclear warheads than the USA, and currently Iran is spinning uranium capable of making weapons that are nuclear. The prophets Isaiah in 750 and Jeremiah 630 BC, Ezekiel in 550 BC, and John in 70 AD has given us multiple descriptions of the nation who dwells carelessly, and every description points to the United States of America. But exactly how long will it take to perform the preemptive strike on Babylon? John gives us multiple verses to answer that question. Revelation 18:10, the merchants of the earth will stand afar off in the fear of her torment. You mighty city Babylon, for in a single hour your judgment or your punishment has come. 14:7 says, and he said with a loud voice, fear God and give him glory, because the hour of his judgment has come. And who will administer the judgment? And the 10 horns that you saw are 10 kings who have not yet received royal power, but they are to receive authority as kings for 1 hour together with the beast. They will hate the woman, and they will make her desolate and naked, and devour her flesh and burn her with fire. For God has put into their hearts to carry out his purpose, by being of one mind and handing over their royal power to the beast until the words of God are fulfilled. Now, from these verses, we can see multiple times that the judgment of Babylon will take 1 hour. We can also see that this 7th providential nation is deposed by the 8th providential nation, which is the New World Order. In perfect detail, God shows us who ministers the judgment, the time it will take, and what method will be done. You know, the Antichrist and his 10 nations perform the judgment, for they carry out his purpose by being of one mind. However, in Jeremiah 51, we see the modern-day countries of Iran, Turkey, and Russia being used to judge Babylon the Great with fire. Now, these 3 nations are also identified in the 7-nation coalition that attacks Israel in the Gog Magog War. Now, the Antichrist has 10 kings in his New World Order. Could the 7 nations who attack Israel be part of the 10 kings who join Antichrist in a preemptive strike on Babylon? Remember, Gog has an evil thought, and the beast and the 10 kings come together with one mind to destroy Babylon. The New World Order cannot take its position until the 7th nation, Babylon, is deposed. So what can believers do as we unravel this mystery? How can anyone make a difference when it comes to God's prophetic word? The answer lies with the believers of Philadelphia, who have made themselves ready. They're like the 5 wise virgins who have oil in their lamps. They've overcome the sins that Jesus unveiled within the other 6 churches. Sins of immorality, dead works, not putting God first in their life, not prioritizing their finances with first fruit offerings, being rich in God, and not participating in the works of his kingdom. Only God will determine who is worthy to escape the hour of tribulation that shall come upon the whole earth. Scripture has warned his people in Babylon to come out of her, my people, and be not partakers of her sins, neither partakers in her plague. Folks, perhaps it's time to roll up our sleeves and start doing works of the kingdom, and at the very least, start helping finance the works that are already in place. Revelation says, I know your works, Behold, I have set before you an open door, which no man can shut. I know that you have but little strength, and yet you have kept my word and have not denied my name. And because you have kept my word, I will keep you from the hour of tribulation that is coming upon the whole world to try those who dwell on the earth. You know, the open door promises is the only time sequence in Scripture that hints of the pre-tribulation rapture, which will initiate the marriage supper of the Lamb. In Revelation 19, it says, there's a shout of much people in heaven, for God has judged the great prostitute, or Babylon the Great. And it says in verse 7, the marriage of the Lamb has come. Blessed are they which are called unto the marriage supper of the Lamb. At this point in time, we can see that the bride of Christ is no longer on the earth nor in Babylon. She's at the marriage supper of the Lamb immediately after Babylon is judged. The worldwide progressive movement, who does not want God, the Ten Commandments, prayer in school, Bibles in school, or Judeo-Christian moral protocol within our culture, will finally get their way. They will be given a world without God, without His provision, protection, or His guidance. It will be a godless society governed by a satanic leader, and it will be the biggest mess that the world has ever seen. The only thing that we are guaranteed of is it will come suddenly, unexpectedly, and in 1 hour, everything will change. But before that hour comes, God's covenant with America will showcase the birth pangs of a nation under judgment. But His covenant believers inside Babylon will continue to receive the divine guidance, provision, and protection within their personal covenant. And America will fulfill the last of 53 descriptions before she is judged. She will maintain her covenant with God and be hated by the Antichrist and his 10 kings until her appointed time of judgment comes. She will have believers within her doing the works of God's kingdom, and those believers will verbally be persecuted by the accuser of the brethren as they raise up a shout against the Babylonian spirits attempting to defile God's covenant in America. She will be Israel's #1 advocate and will stand with the other young lions of Tarshish when Gog is released to fulfill his evil role in Bible prophecy. But folks, we're out of time. Don't miss next week when we reveal the believer's celebration in heaven and the Baal worshippers' misery on earth coming immediately after the 1 hour that changes everything. This is Prophecy USA. My name is Rick Pearson. I'm reminding you that Jesus is alive and He's coming back much sooner than many people think. See you next week. Shalom.